Hello, Sashank.
Hello, what is up?
So, well, the usual. I guess it's been a while. I think it's been almost 2, 3 weeks that we haven't had this discussion on this talk.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a long time.
And yeah, I think today we're connecting, and today is Gauri festival, and tomorrow is Ganesh Chaturthi, and
Yeah,
thought we'd at least have
exciting.
a connect today. Yeah. So, there are one of those festivals, right? Every now and then, you have a different energy which during certain festivals. For example, Diwali is like Diwali, Holi, they have a different feel. Ganesh Chaturthi is a
Yeah,
different feel together though, right?
I mean
And
each festival has its vibe now, so it's always awesome.
yeah, Christmas has its own vibe, and yeah, there are a lot of festival in its own own likes and dislikes as well. And Ganesh Chaturthi is one of my favorite festivals as well. I think the after they made this new change, the rule change, right? Don't use any POP powders or anything of that sort of idols, and just
Yeah.
use one without colors. Uh,
Hmm.
I think things started getting more interesting. The more people started paying attention to it, and whoever were not into it initially because of the chemicals and other things, now don't have that
Hmm.
problem as well. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's a good start, I guess.
yeah, definitely. I do agree with that. It's like a big step up.
Yes, I remember back from Bangalore, Alsur Lake, right? I don't know if you know Alsur Lake. That was the hub
Hmm.
where you bring all the Ganeshas from all the regions, and then
Yeah,
they had a separate section. And I remember there's one time there's so many Ganesha, like so many, and there's the entire region they allocated for the Ganesha, immersion. That entire thing started to turn to muddy waters. So at some point, it become completely soggy, right? The
yeah.
water was almost gone, or just the mud left over there. Clay. That's pretty much what happened though. And that was like long time back. I don't know if it still happens that way, but that was huge. Like how many, the traffic jam and all those things. That was a busy time. I think it was almost 7, 8 years ago, I guess.
I mean, it still remains the same. Every single year we see the same things. POP Ganeshas being made, even though the new rules have come in, we still see the same old things. Some people just prefer the old ways, I guess.
Uh, and hopefully there are more of these immersion centers or hubs where they bring in, and multiple places have these things. For example, like hope they have in Nepal, other regions where there are lakes or other places, so that it's not
Yeah.
just one place and it gets too congested during traffic and other things. But multiple places having it will also be helpful, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I hope it happens. Let's
Yes,
see.
sir. So what are we discussing today, by the way?
Yeah, so let's start off with the elephant in the room, Gauri and Ganesha festival, and then we'll just move on towards maybe we can cover a few topics such as, why are certain rituals done the way that they're done. So we'll just brush on to those topics, such as I think we can just cover the significance of Tulsi, and then the banyan tree and people tree significance, and yeah, we'll just see how it goes.
Yes, sir. Yep. So yeah, please take over. It's all yours now.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So let's start off with the main topic, today and tomorrow's festival, Gauri and Ganesha Puja. So many people might know this, and it's a pretty common story by now. Every single person knows about this entire story. Um, Basically, this entire day is dedicated towards Ganesha, and it is done the way that it's done because Ganesha is said to be born today, as in not taken birth, but his form, the form that we worship as Gajanana, as the elephant-headed person. Um, it was today that this entire event happened, and it's not the day that we have to consider. It's a muhurt that we have to consider, as in the how to explain this. The stars were aligned in such a way that every single year, this time of the year, the stars align in the same way that the event took place. So the same energy is replicated. So that's the entire. purpose behind which we celebrate the Gauri Ganesha festival during this time of the year. So we all know the story about how Ganesha was guarding Parvati's home, and then Shiva tried to enter it, and then that whole war disagreement happened between them, and then Shiva got angry, and then he decided to chop off the little boy's head, and then they decided to uh, take the head of another being, in this case, an elephant's head, that the classic photo that we see today in every single photo of Ganesha. They decided to replace his head with that particular head towards his body, and that's this event took place during this muhurt. So that's why we celebrate this entire Gauri Ganesha festival. And the reason why we do Gauri Puja is just to commemorate the female energy, as in the Shakti within this universe. We just have to worship that. So that's the entire purpose of uh, this particular festival.
That's nice. So we almost covered. We spoke about Ganesha last time as well, right? The last discussion we
Yeah,
had, we spoke about the what type of idols and where the idols are placed and which direction they should be placed. We discussed those things at some point,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
it's more of a continuation. We weren't doing this for Ganesha Chaturthi. I think it was almost 3 weeks ago, and we left off with Ganesha and saying that these are the methods that you need to worship and the names of Lord Ganesha. What are the names he has? How did he acquire those names? We discussed those things, and
Yeah.
today we will be discussing more in terms of rituals and towards Ganesh Chaturthi. There's one thing I wanted to. We've discussed several things. There's one thing which I've never come across, which I recently heard, is that
Hmm.
Ganesha prefers steam cooked offerings than anything, any other kind of offering in terms of food.
Yeah, exactly. Things such as modaks and steamed items, it's said to be more aligned towards Ganesha. So that's why in every single Ganesh puja you see modaks being offered, and that's like a signature item in his bhog. Bhog is what we call as the offering. So yeah,
Mhm.
and there's also the durva grass. It's a type of grass that's like it's said to have the properties of forgiveness, as in it's not to be taken literally. It's just that offering this durva grass um, produces a certain type of energy which helps in washing away your mistakes and your sins, and it also signifies a fresh start. So that's like sort of one significance of that particular durva grass. And there's also the signature tulsi leaves. We're gonna get to this later. So yeah, tulsi is like a standard offering to most of the gods, not all of them, mind you, but yeah, most of the gods. Tulsi is like a signature offering. And then there's also the laddu, which is being offered. And yeah, there's much more things that we can offer, but yeah, these are the primary vogues that we can give to Ganesh.
That's nice. And another thing which I also came across is apart from Tirupati, where people offer hair, uh,
Hmm.
even for Ganesha, some people do. There is apparently this belief system where some people uh, offer hair and to Lord Ganesha as well. Have you come across this by any chance? Because this seems to be a new thing which I came across. I don't know if this is accurate or not.
I mean, it's not a really common practice, but yeah, I do agree with you with wherein this is like a new trend that people started offering their hair to Ganesh, as in the primary purpose of offering a hair is like um, a token of gratitude, and your hair signifies ego basically. So the whole purpose is that you're letting go of your ego, you're letting go of your possession to surrender towards the Lord. And that's the entire ideology behind why people offer their hair towards um, the Tirupati temple, the Lord. So yeah, so that's like there's another backstory towards this, wherein Lord Venkateshwara, as in the deity that is being worshipped in Tirupati, he had taken a
Mhm.
loan as in sort of like you give me this much amount of wealth, I'll just repay it back to you in some time. So he had taken that sort of wealth from Kuber as a loan, but he could not pay that back. So what Lord Venkateshwara did was he repaid his debt using his hair. So keeping this in mind, the devotees just come into Tirupati, and then they just sort of offer their hair towards Narayan as a token of gratitude, as a token of showing their devotion towards him. So that's the entire ideology behind this.
Yep, I've heard of that story though. When you mentioned about Venkateshwara giving his hair as a method of payment, on the
Hmm.
surface it does not make sense, because when you think, how can someone who cannot, someone who's taken that kind of loan which cannot be repaid, but hair somehow comprehends, or makes up for it. On the surface, it obviously doesn't make sense. But
Yeah.
the term, as you mentioned, hair is not
Hmm.
just actual hair. It's a symbol that represents, as you mentioned, the ego,
Yeah.
right? Someone who lets go of this ego, someone who's willing to bow down to
Yeah.
another person, and letting go of their ego altogether. There are commentaries
Yeah.
of these, but we mostly go with face value. We just read something and we look at, okay, this is story seems to be very, you know sad. That's how we pretty much operate, but we don't know the intricacies
Yeah.
of such stories. Where does it come from and what does it mean, right? That's always missed.
Yeah, exactly. See, the thing is that most of the stories that we hear, it's like many of these new generation people, they find it hard to believe. They think that why is the story so ridiculous, why are people flying in the air, and or why is hair being given to repay a loan. So these things are not supposed to be taken literally, as in it's more of a symbol as to what it signifies, as in it's not literally the hair that he's giving out, it's much more than the hair. So we have to look past, we have to read between the lines here. So I think that's what most people miss out on, and they end up believing that these stories are not real, and then they end up being skeptics all their lives. So yeah, that's a major misconception.
And this trend is common not just with Hindus or from people from India, right? Sorry, outside India.
Yeah.
It's also common within Hindus and
Hmm.
other regions as well, right? So if you look at it from how I grew up as well. When I was born and raised a Hindu, I never had a lot of belief in these things, because to me it did not make sense. As a growing
Hmm.
young person growing up, did not make sense whatsoever, right? Half the stories were like,
Yeah.
okay, who wrote these stories, right? And that's how
Yeah.
it was. And because no one bothered to clarify these stories, so these remained to be shared, but they never been explained though. And
Yeah.
what was shared was not shared in a way it was intended. It was shared more the way it was told, and that's been a problem. But I
Yeah.
was just reading this book from Dr. Vikram Sampath called Waiting for Shiva, and he talks
Hmm.
something similar discussion happens, and he mentions that Indians typically, the reason why we share these stories, even though they do sound sometimes ludicrous in its own nature, but there is a reason why they do it as well. For example, uh, some of the regions in North India, where I think North or
Hmm.
South, I'm not sure which one it is, he talks about people, the person who's getting married, the
Hmm.
groom would, in the
Hmm.
middle of the marriage, he would pack up his thing and say he's going to go to Kashi, and he doesn't want to, live his life a family man or whatsoever, and he packs up and leaves. And the father-in-law, that's the bride's father, he would try to convince him. So this is an act which is done by the groom and the father-in-law, where he convinces him that the life is better when you live a married man, happy family, and all those things. So you shouldn't go to Kashi. You should probably remain here. And for most people, this is a stupid ritual. Like, what is this drama during wedding? Right? Doesn't make any sense. But it goes back hundreds of years. During the invasion, at that point of time, when there was a dispute between Kashi, was the Shiva temple was destroyed and this construction wasn't over it, and
Hmm.
the linga itself was disappeared, and there's so many controversies happening. People of that region started making up a story to ensure that, again, this was a time during the invasion where control was not with the people, right? And
Yeah.
they had to come up with these stories to ensure they don't forget their history. So no matter how ludicrous the story could be, they will still retell them constantly because they want that story to be remembered, so people know that exists, right? For example,
Yeah.
the play of Kashi may not be sensible, but for hundreds of years, right? For over a century, we're talking about, and this, I think 1800s, even before that, when this all this started as well, right? This
Mhm.
entire uh, story was remembered, and the entire generation of people know what Kashi and who's in Kashi. And the same way, when people make this fun, when you explain something to people and they say, you listen to Ramayana whole night, the next morning you ask me who's Sita, right? This is another way. Everybody knows what Ramayana, who Rama Sita is, because the way it's, even people who don't know it, after saying this statement, they want to know who Rama is, who Sita is,
Yeah.
right? So this was a
Exactly.
way where we remembered stories, and this was a way we kept them alive, no matter the way which was taken, but the results were given. Not the ideal results, as in the intent was to have it remembered, not to have it remembered rightly, because somewhere deep down, the idea is someone is going to find it out. Someone is going to figure this one out. Someone is going to make
Yeah.
sense of it, right?
Yeah.
Hinduism was not based on 100% population, or just based on 1 or 2% population. 2% can get it, the religion will retain.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Most of these stories, yeah, most of these stories are just mm, constructed to make believe, to install fear within people. Most of these stories are like, if you do this, this is going to happen. If you don't do this, these are the consequences. So it's sort of based on um, the principle where you have to face consequences to your actions. So if you don't do a certain type of activity, you're going to face a really bad consequence for that. And that's why we hear so many stories of curses being given to people wherein they fail to make one action, being delivered from their side, and then they ended up suffering a huge consequence wherein their entire bloodline was cursed sometimes, and then they ended up losing their life. And then through that fear, the people as in us in this generation, we just end up following that so that the same thing does not happen to us.
exactly, we're just talking about cause and action, and that kind of correlation theories, which is again commonly used in terms of fixing problems, identifying any flaws and other trends, right? These are common methods that people use, and the way they've been told might be different, but the essence of it and the contents of it still remain strong. And
Yeah.
like we said, it's like we need people to bring these things out, right? We need people to do this kind of research and bring these things out, so we would know much better. The reason why I mentioned the book is there's another statement which was made. There's this belief system that Shivalinga is a phallic symbol and is worshipped for the same, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the reason I actually brought this entire discussion. So
Mm-hmm.
this discussion goes. There's one story in I think it's Shiva Purana or Linga Purana. I'm not sure. I think Shiva
Mm-hmm.
Purana, right? Where no, Linga Purana, sorry. Uh, so where Krishna, sorry, not Krishna, Shiva was in a state where he was holding a linga in his hand, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
reason he was cursed, and he'll be worshipped in that form, right? And
Yeah.
this is the only story which talks about the word linga used as a genital symbol, for male genitalia of some sort, right? However,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it does not make sense whatsoever with any of the worships, any of the styles, any of the other methodology, how God is seen or how he's been worshipped, or what reason he's been worshipped. Because if it is a phallic symbol as they claim it to be, then the
Mm-hmm.
rituals and the faith system should be around fertility, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But
Exactly.
it doesn't align there. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't align there at all. So he goes on stating that how it is not, and he says there's only one story which talks about this, and this story also means can we have multiple meanings for the word linga, and he talks about
Mm-hmm.
something called Atma Linga. There's another story again in Shiv Purana it talks about where Ravana does tapas and he comes to Shiva and he gives him the Atma Linga, right?
Mm-hmm.
And says
Yeah.
do not place the Atma Linga on the ground. If you place it, will remain where it is, right?
Yeah.
So the author asks the question: if Linga means what it is, then did Shiva just remove his penis and hand it over to another person? Does this make sense to you, right? And that entire story doesn't talk about penis. It talks about a heavy linga, which is a personification of power, which he have to
Yeah.
carry, right? So it
Yeah.
didn't make sense. And he brings up multiple verses from the Puranas where linga is
Mhm.
used for multiple reasons, but not as a phallic symbol whatsoever, except for that one story,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And this whole story, I think it's today's Mahabaleshwar temple, right, where Ravan set the whole linga down because of a trickery due to Ganesh, made by
Yep.
Ganesh.
Our
Yeah,
hero of the day, by the way, just so you know.
exactly. So yeah, it was a trickery made by Ganesh, and he ended up placing the linga down, and it's today's Mahabaleshwar temple, I believe.
Hmm. Right. And yeah, so this entire idea behind the linga, which is a phallic symbol, does not make sense because there are no other verses that even come close to that argument which has been made, and the only other argument is that it looks like one, like the shape of it looks like one. The problem with that is it does not.
Exactly. It does not symbolize a phallus in any sort of way, as in, even if you just jumble it in a way that it resembles a phallus, it still has so many different abilities. As in, the linga is not just a symbol, it's like a powerhouse of energy. And the whole structure, like I think we have discussed it in an earlier podcast, the whole structure of the Shivalinga is sort of like a host for positive energy. It's a powerhouse for energy. And there's dhyana linga, there's atma linga, so many types of other lingas, but dhyana linga is what's the most popular. And I think you can see the dhyana linga in Sadhguru's ashram as well. So that's like a thing that they have made over there. It's made in such a way that if you sit around the linga, you are going to be able to concentrate in such a way that you've never done in your entire life before. And that says something, right?
Exactly. So a person cannot have multiple penises, right? I mean, it doesn't make sense
Yeah.
as well. I mean, if there's Dhyana Linga, Atma Linga, and Shambhu Linga, there's so many lingas as you mentioned. Like
Yeah.
the argument doesn't make sense. Then he also talks about, I think it's Agni Purana, where he
Hmm.
talks about how a linga should be constructed for worship. Right? It talks
Yeah.
about the Brahma's part, talks about the Vishnu's part, talks about Shiva's part. There is a structure to it. If it's just a penis, no one's going to describe penis in that detail, like, or there's an idea behind that penis, or there's a ritual behind it, right? So
Yeah.
again, I wouldn't have known this if this person had not made his research. And the problem with, again, we're coming back to the same discussion, which is unless until people actually look into it and they
Hmm.
identify these things, most of them would
Hmm.
not have a clue. And unless until people like us start talking about this, most of us would not agree to it as
Exactly. Yeah, and like you mentioned, there is a method to building a linga, and it's not just you carve out a rock and it's all ready. But yeah, there's I think I've read somewhere that even Arjuna made a shivling, and I think he used clay and 12 different types of materials. I'm finding a hard time to remember this. I think I read somewhere that it is consisting of sand and cow dung and rudraksha seeds, and it was also sandalwood and one type of grass, and I think it
well.
also had some cooked food in it. So 12 different materials. These are specific materials that you're supposed to use. It's not just random things that you put together. So it does not make sense that it can be used as a palace symbol. It's a powerhouse of energy that all of these 12 materials come together in order to produce a certain type of vibration around it in order to become a Shivlinga. So I think that, yeah, that's the way I see it.
Exactly. So yeah, end of the day, the whole idea is that people need to start talking about this. People need to start working on it, and luckily we have scholars and other people who are investigating time in it, and luckily we have people who are also willing to talk about these things. You and I happen to be one of those few people as well. We started discussing these things. Neither of us
Yeah,
had any experience in these things, nor did we do this before, right? And we started doing
yeah,
it. Both of us felt that this was the right time and this was the right thing to do as well. And then
exactly.
starts a journey.
I think that's like sort of it happened on its own. None of us triggered it, so I think that's a really special thing.
We just gave our origin stories at this point, right? Like,
Exactly.
right. So yeah, so I know we somehow came to the topic where the hero of the day, Ganesha, he was the one who, was the person we discussed a couple of minutes back. But the whole idea was to discuss about Tulsi plant and other plants and other significance as well. So
Yeah.
yes, sir. So what is? Let's talk about Tulsi plant. So it's
Yeah.
known for its purity and spirituality. And every so if you go to a temple, there's one thing which you offer is you get this water, right?
Hmm.
And there's tulsi leaves in it, and that's one of those things which is offered in every temple, right?
Yeah.
And worshipping tulsi plant in the morning is something which is common as well, right? And the tulsi plant is also known to be really good for your energy and good for your health, and also it has this positive energy which you will get when you go around it in the morning. So that's typically the reason why it's done. But could you give us more idea in terms of what is tulsi plant and what are the benefits of it?
Yeah. So Tulsi plant is, it can be looked at sort of like supersonic version of a plant, as in everything that's good in a plant, just multiply that by 10, you'll get tulsi. So it's sort of like a super plant, and it has so many medicinal properties, and it is said that every morning, without anything in your stomach, with an empty stomach, if you eat a tulsi plant, it's gonna have like a positive effect on you, and so many medical benefits as well. And the reason why every single temple gives out tulsi with their waters, and the Tirtha Prasada that they give in temples, it always has one or two tulsi leaves in it. And it's the same reason why they give it out. It has so many benefits to it. Also, the positive vibrations that tulsi brings after consuming it, or after offering it to your deity, it's tremendous, as in it's limitless. I would like to say that it's limitless, but it's not as simple as it's just a plain plant that originated somewhere in some other country, and people just happen to notice its benefits and they started to worship it. No, it's not that simple. So this dates back to a millennia, and this story, particular Tulsi story, is mentioned in Padma Puran, Shiv Puran, and Skanda Puran as well. So it all starts with Indra and Brihaspati, the sage Brihaspati. They were just gonna go ahead and meet Shiva, and I'm just gonna condense the story a bit, just to decrease the time that it consumes. So yeah,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
just gonna mention the gist of it. So Indra and Lord Indra and the sage Brihaspati, they were just gonna go ahead and meet Shiva, and Shiva, upon knowing this, as in he just saw them coming from far away, he just disguised himself as a sage, and he just sat in the middle of the path that they were taking. And Indra did not know this. Brihaspati did not know this. So what did they do? Naturally, they just told the sage to get out of their path and just let them go ahead. But the sage was just meditating, and he did not even budge. And Indra just sort of got agitated, and he started cursing the sage, and then he started showing a lot of disrespect towards Shiva. Shiva, upon hearing this, he just got extremely angry, and he started doing his tandav, his Natraj avatar. He started doing his tandav, and then at the end, it was sort of in a position where Indra was not apologizing, but Shiva was not even getting, you know, he was not willing to give up. So Shiva just decided to open his third eye upon Indra, and then upon seeing this, Brihaspati just tried to intervene. And after seeing Brihaspati asking for forgiveness, and then seeing Brihaspati asking for forgiveness, Indra also started asking for forgiveness. And after seeing this, he was sort of cooling down, and at that point, he decided to divert the energy from his third eye onto another point, and this point happened to be the ocean. Shiva just ended up blasting the ocean with the energy, with the heat from his third eye, and this this unique union of fire and water, the fire from Shiva's third eye and the ocean's water, it just sort of gave birth to a baby, And it is said that this baby's cries, a baby naturally cries when it's unattended to, and this baby was unattended in the ocean. It was just floating towards the ocean, and the crying from this baby was so powerful that the 14 lokas, they started um, sort of vibrating, and it was unbearable. And then Brahma just went towards that particular baby, and he decided to make it a bit, you know, cooler, and stop crying. And he named the baby Jalandhar as a baby from water, originated from water. And then he later, became a extremely significant asur. By the way, I forgot to mention that he is an asur, since he is born out of the heat from Shiva's third eye. So yeah, he's an asur, and he later took a lot of classes and took a lot of coaching from extremely well renowned gurus, and he ended up becoming the king of Asuras. And then he later married Vrinda, who was the daughter of an Asur. And Vrinda, the speciality about Vrinda is, even though she's the daughter of an Asur, she is an extremely pure Vishnu devotee, Krishna devotee. Um, so yeah, the speciality about Jalandhar that was that he was as strong as the love that he got from his wife. So as long as the love from his wife was pure, he is undefeatable. Nobody can conquer him. That was his speciality. So yeah, due to, after knowing this, and he started to become aware of his powers, and he just got a bit greedy, and like all asuras, he just ended up going towards all the lokas, and he started conquering one loka after another. He conquered the Devaloka first, and then he just went towards Kailasha being the abode of Lord Shiva. He went there, and he was so mesmerized by the beauty of Mata Parvati, Ma Shakti, that he ended up disguising himself as Shiva in order to trick her, sort of, get close with her and speak to her. And he tried to do that, but instantly, Parvati being Ma Shakti, she instantly recognized him and saw through his completely. And then she got extremely angry, and then we all know what happens when Mata Parvati gets angry. She took the form of Ma Kali, the fierce form that she takes when she's angry. And then Jalandhar, knowing that he cannot face that, he decided to run away. Parvati, enraged, she ended up reaching towards Vishnu and Lakshmi, and she just asked some help towards them, from them, so that she can end up defeating Jalandhar for the deceit that he has done towards her. So uh, what Vishnu did at this point, it is a bit surprising, but at the same time, it's not that surprising, because he ended up trying to trick Jalandhar's wife, Vrinda, so that her devotion would break towards her husband, and then uh, Mata Parvati can just go ahead and kill this demon who was on the verge of conquering all the lokas. And yeah, this happened. So Vishnu just ended up reaching out to Vrinda, and while reaching out, he just took the form of her husband, the same way that Jalandhar took the form of Shiva. Vishnu took the form of Jalandhar, and he ended up tricking Vrinda. But Vrinda, being the normal devotee that she is, she was not able to recognize that it was not her husband. She ended up serving to him, and she ended up talking to him, and it was sort of like she was talking to another man. But after a while, she started to recognize that this is not her husband that she's talking to. And once the act was broken, Vishnu decided to reveal his true self, and that's when uh, Vrinda got really angry, and then she cursed Vishnu to be cast into a stone. And that stone is what today many people worship as a saligram. A saligram is the stone that Vishnu was cursed into. So it makes sense that so many people worship it, and they keep that stone within their houses in order to bring positive vibrations. So it is believed that Vishnu resides in those stones. So yeah, getting back to the story. So Vishnu just being himself accepted the curse without fighting it or without having a second word for it, because he knew, he's aware what he did was, um, it was not completely fair towards Vrinda, because Vrinda is an innocent person in this entire narrative. So yeah, he just accepted this entire curse upon himself. And after that, being guilty of the actions that she conducted herself by, she basically cursed the lord that she worships. So what she did was, she just burnt herself alive, as in she just entered the fire, and she just burnt herself alive. She gave her life, and after that, from her ashes, we saw a plant that sprouted from her ashes itself, and that plant was named as Tulsi by Lord Brahma. And then Vishnu ended up giving it a lot of boons, saying that every time that I'm worshipped, as in Vishnu is worshipped, Tulsi is an offering that he'll be the most pleased by. And yeah, this is the entire story of how Tulsi came to be. It was basically a plant that has risen from the ashes of Vishnu's own dear devotee. And then later, the story unfolded, and then Jalanda was later killed by Parvati. And yeah, this whole thing happened. So, this is the origin story of Tulsi.
So, in other words, so the moral of the story, apart from the origins of Tulsi, is that deception breeds deception. Like what you
Exactly.
do to other people, the same would be done to you. And even if it's even here's another trick as well. Even though something is bad and it's done to you, you still have to
Hmm.
have you still have to face the consequences for that action, which is done by the person as well. Which is exactly why Vishnu had to take that blame, because at the end of the day, even though he is God, he still has to pay that consequence because he did something which was again wrong.
Exactly. Nobody can escape from karma. That's the major takeaway from the story. Even God himself, the creator himself, he was not able to accept karma. He was not able to escape karma, and he ended up getting a curse for his actions. So who are we to think that we're gonna escape karma in that way?
Exactly. So if you're doing something wrong, bad thing will also happen to you. But if you initiate doing those bad things yourself, for that you have consequences to be paid as well. So it is what it is. At the end of the day, like you just have to go through these things. No matter what actions you do, small or big, they will have consequences.
Yeah, exactly. The consequence might be within the next 5 minutes, or the consequences might be within the next 50 years. Nobody knows that, but the consequences is going to be faced by you and you alone.
Yes, sir. That's sort of Tulsi, and yeah, Tulsi has been a very significant plant. There are several plants, trees, as well as flowers which have major roles. Tulsi itself has a very strong, Tulsi and Neem especially, a very strong
Yeah,
role in the Hindu mythology, Hindu religion altogether. And yeah, we will cover those maybe in the next time as well. We have more of these things we wanted to discuss. And speaking
yeah,
of plants and the trees, people trees, one of those trees which is quite it plays quite important role in the Hindu religion. And what do you have to say about people tree?
yeah. So people tree is a specific special tree, as in um not because it's the fact that gods reside in the tree, or uh any other story that's connected to it. It's a scientific reason why people tree has so much of significance, and why we tie so many threads and we worship the people tree. This for the simple reason, because the people tree is the only tree that is capable of sustaining life even at night, as we know basic science of plants. So we all know that plants draw oxygen from the air at night, and they give out carbon dioxide at night, and during the daytime it's the reverse. They give out oxygen and they take in carbon dioxide. So this whole thing with carbon dioxide and oxygen being swapped, it does not exist with the people tree. The speciality about people tree is that it gives oxygen even at night. And the whole thing where you're not supposed to sleep under tree. If you go to villages, you hear stories that ghosts reside upon specific trees. and you're not supposed to sleep at night below a tree because a Brahma Rakshas might possess you. So we hear all of these stories, but it's not as simple as that. You can't just tell people that if you sleep beneath a tree, you're going to be basically inhaling carbon dioxide because the tree is going to suck in the oxygen and it's going to give out the carbon dioxide, and you're going to be inhaling that, and it poses a risk to your life. People are not going to listen to that, but instead,
Imagine making the statement a couple of thousand years ago, right? You know, thousand
Mhm.
years ago, just saying, you know what? By the way, if you sleep below a tree, you would be
Mhm.
inhaling carbon dioxide. Again, carbon dioxide is bad for the health. And we're like, what stupidity are you talking about? Because it goes to the tree. I'm like, what? That makes sense. Let me just not say.
Exactly, they played with the minds of the people. So yeah, instead of telling that it's a health risk, they just posed it as a life risk so that people would start taking it more seriously. And the people tree is one such tree wherein even you can even sleep at night below that tree because it gives out oxygen even during the night. And it goes out in the same way wherein we address a cow as a mother. So the story goes that we're told that gods reside within a cow, the Kamadenu, and we have so many other stories about how cows are so great. But it's a simple reason that if a baby is unable to get access to a mother's breast milk, even if you feed it a cow's milk, it's going to get the same amount of nutrients. So if you give out goat's milk or any other animal's milk to a baby, it's never going to achieve the same amount of nutrition that it could using the breast milk uh, from its own mother, the baby's own mother. But the cow is the only mammal which can give out milk, which has the properties that a human baby needs in order to survive this. So that's the reason why we equate cows with our mothers, because it's literally sustaining our baby's life by giving it the nutrients that it needs because it's not able to get the breast milk of its own mother. And yeah, so similarly, people tree is having a similar sort of story wherein they're not able to tell the people that you're not supposed to sleep under trees, but you can sleep under people tree. How do you say that? How do you prevent people trees from being cut out? You say that gods reside within the tree, and it's symbolized in such a beautiful manner. They say that Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, all three of these Trimurtis, as we call them, they reside within the people tree, and it's been given such a beautiful symbolism wherein near the roots where the tree originates is where Brahma resides, as in the root itself from where the tree gets its life. Brahma is where he is because he is the creator of this entire material universe. And then in the middle, where the branches, where the main strength of the tree lies, where the tree is able to sustain itself, that is where Vishnu resides. And the tree branches out. Each leaf grows on a branch and it dies out eventually. And Shiva is being described as he resides in the top part of the tree, wherein life is destroyed in order to make way for new leaves to be born in that same place. So if one leaf dies out, two leaves are going to take its place because Shiva is going to make way for that leaf to be destroyed, so that Brahma and Vishnu can pave the way for two new leaves to be born in that same place. So it's given such a beautiful description over there.
Funny because that's the same idea mentioned for the construction of Shivalinga as well. The root, again, the bottom portion of it would be Brahma, the middle portion of it is Vishnu, and the top portion of it is Shiva, right?
Exactly.
So the idea, the way it's put together, they all have the same narration. Like, whatever the reason, again, I don't know the actual reason why it's in this order.
Mhm.
You've given us one reason, but again,
Mhm.
what trying to say is, if it's not true, then it can't be consistent. It would always be, moved around, correct? If it's
Yeah.
consistent throughout, then there has to be a significant truth behind it for it to remain
Yeah.
consistent.
I mean, at the end of the day, we have originated from tribes itself. Each tribe living in a different area has a narrative of its own. And if they are rival tribes, they're gonna try to sort of oppose the other tribes' beliefs. And we see this in other cultures, wherein other cultures believe that gods come from beneath the surface, and we the Indian tribe believe that gods come from the heaven. So this can just be two tribes at war with each other, and they can just be contradicting each other's points just to prove their own rivalry. And yeah, I think that's the same case with all of these stories, where each god resides. It's just an opinion where a tribe agrees upon one thing, and the people of that tribe, they continue the story through their bloodline.
Interesting. You spoke about ghost in trees, right? That is something which
Yeah,
I've been wanting to discuss a lot. That's horror and horror specific things, right? I think maybe
yeah.
someday we will actually go through it, but I just want to, set that path right now.
Hmm.
Ghosts in the see, you've seen ghosts in the Western movies, right? You've seen ghosts in
Yeah.
the Middle East, like you have the jinns and other things, and you
Hmm.
have Satan in the Christian. All Abraham, you have Satan, and right, you have this version of it, and how
Yeah.
the way they are is quite different. But typically, we don't have similar idea of ghosts in Hinduism until late. I think during the post-Islamic invasion and post the British invasion, the stories started to
Hmm.
align together. Like both started having similar stories. Before that, you had Rakshas and Asuras, and those were it, correct? And
Yeah.
later on you started, even jinns started becoming part of mainstream Hindu religion as well, apparently. And you have other conjuring type ghosts. You have this bhoot pisaka pishasha, and also the chudhales and other things as well, right? Vampires
Yeah.
and stuff, like so many stories. But again, these do have similar ideas in other religion. So maybe someday we will actually discuss about these things, break it down from where these stories came from, how much of it is Indian, how much of it is not Indian anymore, and other
Yeah.
things as well.
Exactly. It's a vast topic to discuss, and it's like a super interesting topic. So I'm like thrilled about it.
We just need more people who knows about these horror things and these ghost stories. I think it's time to hunt for people who are
Yeah.
hunting for ghosts, I guess.
Yeah. Daredevils.
And also Bangalore is also quite interesting in terms of horror stories. I've heard there are several places within Bangalore which has creepy encounters. And to my knowledge, in India, the most haunted place happened to be Shimla. I think most of the stories are from Shimla. I don't know, because of the setting which looks nice, and people start making stories about Shimla. But most stories I've heard is mostly these hill regions, and Shimla especially has a lot to offer in terms of these horror or ghost stories, though.
Yeah, yeah, so many stories are there, but what I think is that many of these stories are just gimmicks in order to increase their own tourism. But yeah, I mean, not denying that ghosts are not real in those places, or any sort of those things. But yeah, sometimes people end up making gimmicks in order to generate more revenue, in order to increase the people that come in hunting for ghosts. So yeah, I think those gimmicks are like a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a topic for a different day where we get to look into. Today's topic is all about spiritual and positive stuff, though. We'll get to the negative maybe a couple of weeks later, though. But today is all about positive and divine stuff. So let's talk
Yeah,
about lotus and how sacred it is.
yeah. So lotus is sort of like the signature flower wherein we address anything that's beautiful. It can be addressed as a lotus. So we say that Vishnu's Pada Kamala, Kamala meaning lotus, Pada meaning feet. So his feet is literally described as a lotus. So you can just imagine the purity that the lotus flower brings with it. And it also has a certain type of spiritual alignment with certain types of gods, wherein most of these gods have sattvic properties, as in you can't just offer a lotus to any random god that you would wish to. It has to align with their own vibrations, with their own properties, in order to be able to offer the lotus. I mean, just right off top of my head, you can offer the lotus to Krishna or Vishnu, because the literal definition of Krishna, his he's described as a lotus, as an pada kamala, meaning feet of
Hmm.
lotus. So you can just imagine how good how good of a significance this holds within our religion, and the fact that it grows in muddy waters, it also holds another type of significance wherein, even if you are surrounded by sort of bad influences, you can still come out on top, wherein you are the lotus and you just stand out on top of everyone else. So yeah.
I've also heard that lotus is not typically grown every other place. For a long time, I thought this was again a plant which grows in every other place, but then this is only restricted to East Asia, especially India, China, and Vietnam, and these regions. So, how do I know this? There was a discussion. There was a construction in Jordan, or I'm not sure,
Hmm.
Lebanon. I'm not sure. So there was a construction where there is an old building which I don't know the name of the building. That's quite famous as well. It's like a tourist spot, huge pillars and
Hmm.
everything. And there is a
Hmm.
story that says that this construction was done by Indian, architects, and they were
Oh.
trying to break this one down and say why is it Indian? One,
Hmm.
because in the neighboring surrounding there is no other architecture which is superior to that of Indian architecture. That's we've seen our architecture and all those things, the temples and other things
Yeah.
have their own
Yeah.
way. Similar
Hmm.
style was used there, and
Hmm.
lotus at the top of it there was lotus which was carved, and carving such is typically an artwork that only found in Indian temples and Indian artwork and all those things, right? And lotus was a
Hmm.
common use. Whether China did use lotus for the medicinal purpose and other things, they were not typically using in building architecture. Only India was doing it at this point of time. So
Yeah.
the building still exists and it has a lotus, and people were saying that again, this is again a migration where people were moved, not like a group which like a refugees moved from one place to another. It's more like they hired people from one region to
Hmm.
construct this particular uh, building, right? And that's when I
Yeah.
understood that lotus is not typically other parts east, Middle East or other Western regions. It's mostly Southeast Asia or Asia, and it's also national flower for both India and Vietnam, apparently.
Oh, I did not know that. I mean, I knew about India, but Vietnam I was not aware.
Yeah, I found out today as well, though, so I'm not much experience on this as well. Just found out today.
Man, that's nice. I mean, we have so many gods that literally sit upon a lotus. We have so many photos of Lakshmi sitting on lotus, the goddess of wealth, and we have Saraswati, I believe, who sits on the lotus as well, who is the goddess of knowledge, and we have Ganesh, who holds a lotus in one of his hands, and
Yeah,
we have,
Brahma.
yeah, exactly, Brahma as well. He's aligned with lotus as well, and Vishnu being the main example of this whole thing. So many gods align with this particular flower. It's not a small thing.
Yes, sir. So, yeah, and lotus has also a religious attachment as well. Right? As you mentioned, all these divine beings that you refer to, all these gods, and all of
Hmm.
them happen to use lotus as the seating, like a place where they reside upon, right? And
Yeah,
so this has a very strong significance in terms of religion, which is exactly why the argument over there, the construction by Hindu architecture was used here, is because of that kind of significance as well. And
yeah.
yeah, typically, I mean, I don't get to see a lot of. I mean, I don't know when was the last time I've seen a lotus in person, but as much as it's a national flower, we just don't get to see them often, though. Surprisingly, right?
I think I remember a quote. The fact that what makes it special is because it's rare. It's so rare that it's so special. So I think, yeah, that's sort of appropriate here.
Correct. And there's also another plant, water lily, which is also confused in terms of the where it's available. It's also confused with lotus, but they are completely different, and they are not the same as lotuses as well.
Yeah, I mean, you see a lot of significance with their appearance. So many people
Mhm.
get confused with lotus and water lily. So yeah, that happens.
Yes, sir. So I think one of the most interesting topics. This is something which you can find common with Christianity as well, though another religion from the West which has similar ideas, and also other religions as well, which is lighting. fire. Fire has always been worshipped by every religion from the beginning till now, right?
Yeah,
And Christianity, where candles are lit, and there are also other religions like the Norse religion, as well as the Romans, the Greek. They do have this concept of lighting a fire and worshipping that as well. We do also
mhm,
have a similar idea where we light the lamp, and during the fire. We also have this idea where it has to be, uh, post 6 o'clock. There is a time. There's always an idea, a time or something which is given, right? Like you have to do it post
yeah,
6 o'clock, post 5 o'clock, and you have to only turn it off a certain way, right? So many things.
yeah.
So maybe I'll get some input from you. What are your thoughts of these lamps, diyas, for worship purposes?
Yeah, so our religion has always had a high significance of fire. So fire is always used as a symbolism of purity, as in we see in the olden times where we have seen Masita step into fire in order to prove her purity towards Lord Rama. So this is just one of the other examples that I'm going to use. It's a symbol of being so pure that you don't differentiate between bad and good. What's to be there, it's to be there. Fire does not differentiate with that. And with that in mind, fire is basically used as a medium. So we all know that there are elements of nature, right? There's earth, there's air, there's water, there's fire. So these are the elements of nature, and one such element is fire. And this particular fire element is so pure, and it is used as a as a bonding agent. So it's not easy to sort of connect with a god instantly. So when we do artis, when you see in the temples, they do the arti, they go clockwise, and they just turn it around the deity, and then they just offer that fire to you. It's not as simple as they're just turning the plate in such a way that it's gonna take the blessings from the deity and it's gonna give it over to you. No, it's a medium wherein you, through fire, are being able to connect with the goddess. It's not it's not that the goddess cannot reach out to you or the god cannot reach out to you without the help of fire. It's just an easier way. You see how two metals, when they're heated up through fire, they end up bonding into one single metal. That's the same kind of logic that's being used over there. You being the subordinate soul, and you wanting to connect with the super soul, that's the god. You can just use fire as a medium, and you can't literally just burn a literal place down in order to be able to connect with the god. So what do? You just light up a small fire, and you just light up a lamp, and you just offer it towards the goddess. You take it near the god or goddess, and you just turn it around a few times around them, and then you just take the blessings. You just take the heat from the fire, and you press it onto your eyes, because you can't literally put your face into the fire because that's going to burn you. You just absorb a little bit. You just take away a little bit of that heat from that fire, and you just press it onto your eyes, thinking that you are taking the blessings of the deity through that fire. So this is the entire purpose of why artis are done. It's just a medium of connecting with gods. And along with that fire, there's also the offering of flowers. Flowers are just, an offering, a token of gratitude towards gods. And yeah, even during marriages, we see that fire is the main element over there. Hindu marriages, talking about Hindu marriages, of course, in any ritual that you do, fire is the main requirement over there, because it is believed that fire can be used as a medium of connecting with the higher power. And speaking of marriages, the fire is the main element over there, and without the fire, the marriage cannot take place. And the the couple just goes around the fire in order to seal their bond by taking fire as a witness. So you can just imagine the purity that fire offers, and that's why fire has such a huge significance in our culture.
There's one of these stories which I read. Fire not just is important to humans but also to the devas as well. And there is a story which goes that Indra and his
Yeah,
devas, right? They get when
Mm-hmm.
the Vedic people were worshipping the devas, the way they made sacrifice or
Mm-hmm.
oblations were through fire, right? And whatever sacrifices, when I say sacrifice, not human
Yeah.
sacrifices, we're talking about the offerings they put in the fire, right? So when those things were made,
Yeah.
fire Agni was the one who carries it to the gods, right? But initially there was a problem
Yeah.
that Agni would burn them. Apparently, he would consume them completely, and the gods were getting weakened
Mm-hmm.
because they were not getting these,
Yeah.
the oblations as per their portions were not reaching out. So I don't know which, I know one of the three gods should have done it, but I don't know which one it is. So they create a wife for Agni who would be able to make
Mm-hmm.
that transfer more smoothly and efficiently. And the wife's name is Swaha, and hence the term every time you put something in Agni, you say Swaha at the end of it. So that was the
Yeah,
story
exactly.
which I got.
I've heard of the story too. So anytime you make an offering, you just chant the name Swaha so that the wife of Agni just takes the offering and without burning it, without causing any harm to it, it's being taken directly towards the gods. So yeah.
So the importance of fire has been prominent. It shows as a connection between the demigods as well. When I say gods or demigods, we're talking about, again, our way of addressing gods are different, right? So the devas we're talking about over here, Indra and the people from the Vayu, Varuna, and Agni and all those are devas, and those devas are connected to us through fire, to Agni. He's a mediator. That's how the connection is built between
Exactly.
us, and they are dependent on us, and we are dependent on them.
Yeah.
Meaning, what oblations that we, whatever ritualistic practice we follow, that also benefits them, and that retains their divinity. In the same way, they also bestow the requirement, the fundamental primordial requirement, which is water, air, and warmth, and all those things, and they provide the same to us, is what the belief system is. And it's the
Yeah.
same thing if you look at the Greek mythology as well, right? If you go back to the Greek religion, uh, it is known that the
Mm-hmm.
Greek gods get their powers from their worships, right? In other words, the more you worship, the more you worship,
Yeah.
or you look up to, like Zeus or Athena or any of those, Poseidon, they are
Mm-hmm.
the strength has been enhanced, and but Hades, on the other hand, is more like fear is what gives them the power. But if the gods have not been worshipped, then automatically their power fades, and they are not able to be in their full capacity as well. In other words, we're talking about another form of devatas or devas we're talking about over here, where their connection to humans is significant. They're both tied to each other, one way or another. Or at
Yeah.
least that's the plan.
Fire is the main mode of connection.
So
Yeah.
sorry, I cut you off.
I don't know. So yeah, I was many other cultures wherein the deities get their primary power through the worship of their own devotees. So it's sort of an exchange of energy that takes place, as in we are all giving them, we are praying to them, and they are giving their blessings to us. And through this, the balance of nature is maintained.
Correct. And you mentioned about the arati and the blessings, how you take it. So again, we you discuss that in detail as well. Uh, I just have a picture over here which has that information as well, right? So
Hmm.
this has been a practice which has been followed for thousands of years, right? And some might question, like, why
Yeah,
is this important? Can worship happen without it? Of course it can. There is no such fixed rule in Hinduism that says this is the only way you have to worship, right? Most of the worship are like flexible. But what does it do is where the question comes in. When you start your worship, when you have the light lit, and when you have the incense sticks which is burnt, and when you have those things, automatically you are in a place where your mind is relaxed, right? And anyone who's
yeah,
done that would know, it's changed you completely, and this entire feel makes it more clean. As in, the when you start doing these things, automatically you want to keep your surrounding clean. Wherever the worship happens, it has to be very clean. And let's
yeah.
just say I'm doing this in my room or anything of that sort, right? At my office, in my room, anything of that sort. I ensure
Mm-hmm.
that the entire place is clean. And when I say clean, I'm talking about, before the ritual, make sure everything is dusted, everything is swept, and no garbage, anything is laid in the room, and clear all of it. And when I start with these rituals, and not just the room, but when my mind is clean, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So these are disciplines in a way, and they do have a psychological feeling as well, where this helps one individual with them taking away their anxiety or their any kind of mental pressure or pain that they have. But yeah, what are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain level of sanctity that is to be maintained when you're dealing with these higher forces, and it's not as simple as cleaning up your room in a way that there's not even a speck of dust. That's one part of it, of course, but there are other aspects wherein you're supposed to be clean from the inside, as in your mind, your heart is supposed to be clean, and that's sort of the main aspect of this. And yeah, so I think that's the main concept of keeping yourself pure from within. That's the main prerequisite of being able to connect with a god that you're praying to.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. So, well, the argument I was making is, when I do this, right, it automatically makes my mind clean as well as relaxed and other things. So I find them connected in a way, right? So when I
Yeah.
start doing, it's more of a, like a checklist, right? When I start doing one, the other thing happens automatically, and when I start doing this, I build a discipline. I start following these things on a certain time, a certain day, no matter what, right? Because it's easy to not do things, right? It's easy to
Yeah.
be lazy. There's no doubt about it. But doing certain things regularly with having this, strict disciplines that needs to be followed, and those are difficult, and yet you do those because
Hmm.
somewhere you are convinced, and you also feel that the actions that you cause have a positive reaction towards you.
Yeah, exactly. That's the entire goal, I think. Always to have a positive reaction towards all of your actions. So it's sort of unhealthy to have that sort of expectation from your actions. I mean, the Gita does state that you're supposed to perform your actions without any expectations, but we are humans after all, right?
Correct. So we spoke of Shanti earlier, and yeah, so we already discussed why do we use Shanti? Why do we say Shanti thrice? And that is again, so it's almost Swaha, Shanti. My bad, right? So
Yeah,
Shanti is very okay. That's a different one. My bad. My bad. Sorry. Yeah, please go ahead.
yeah. So Swaha, yeah, we discussed that she's the wife of Agni, and she's the one that carries our offerings towards the gods that it's intended to. And yeah, it's just a manner of protecting your offerings without being burnt through the heat and purity of the fire that you're offering. And coming to Shanti, so you might have noticed that so many prayers at the end we say Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. The whole ideology behind that is so that we are praying towards the gods. After ending our prayer, we're just telling them to get rid of the three types of suffering that's caused to us. So to further break this down, uh, so you can just look at it sort of on a personal level, wherein there's adhyatmika dukkha. Adhyatmika dukkha means the suffering that is caused to your soul. Adhyatmika means inner soul. So that's one type of suffering that a person goes through, and the second type of suffering is adi bhautika dukkha. So that's a suffering that is caused by your surroundings, as in adi bhautika, meaning that anything that's in front of you or that is an external factor. It might be a person, it might be something that's bothering you, that's causing you a lot of mental suffering, or it can be physical suffering that's external. So that's one kind of suffering. And the final kind of suffering is Adi Daivika Dukkha. So Adi Daivika, the name itself suggests that any suffering that is caused by a higher power. So this can be, how do I put this? It can be suffering caused by earthquakes or act of God, or something that you cannot easily control. That's the entire purpose of that. So we're just praying to the deities to get rid of these three sufferings. Of course, it's not going to be completely gotten rid of. One more way of looking at it is, we are mentioning all three of these sufferings that we go through our entire life, and we're just asking for the gods to give us the strength to endure it. So instead of praying to get away from it, get away without a scratch, we can also pray to them for the strength to face all of these things.
Got it. So yes, there is one of those things which I notice is that supernatural, attachment is the strongest one, and as you mentioned, other three forms. When you
Hmm.
mention Shakti Thrice, it's like you releasing yourself from this particular cycle as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And temple doors, right? So eclipses and other astrological events are
Hmm.
common in Hindu religion, or you would see the Navagraha being worshipped even before the actual science could describe there are eight planets with the sun in the center.
Hmm.
We had that concept long before, right? Every temple has a
Yeah.
Navagraha, and again, we have sun in the center and surrounded by eight planets, right?
Hmm.
And so we know that for a fact that the astronomical things were very common, and
Hmm.
eclipses were also something which had been observed by our ancestors. Why is the temple doors closed during eclipses?
So the main purpose of closing temple doors during eclipses. So we all know that temples are a place of positive energy, and it's a place that we go to in order to um, experience that sort of positive vibration from the deity that we're going to worship within that temple. But what happens during an eclipse is that uh, the sun is blocked in such a way that this eclipse, it's blocking the sun's light, and it's not a positive energy that can be taken, and it's not a positive vibration that particularly aligns with the temple's vibrations. So everything comes down to that particular aspect, wherein people are not supposed to enter the temples, because this sort of mix between positive and negative vibrations, it's not a healthy thing for the human body. And for the same reason, for the same purpose, they say that you're not supposed to eat during an eclipse, you're not supposed to chant any prayers during the eclipse, and you're also not supposed to touch the tulsi leaf. The tulsi leaf, which is known to be so holy and so pure, you're not supposed to touch that plant at all. And once the eclipse gets over, you're supposed to take a bath, and preferably you are supposed to add basil leaves into all of your meals, just to enhance all of your meals post eclipse. So this just goes to show that the entire rays, the negative rays that are being put upon us from the eclipse, it's not a really good thing. And the our ancestors were so advanced that they knew this thousands, hundreds of thousands of years ago, and they've been following the same procedure all throughout. And yeah, it still makes sense. These are scientific, these are things that are based on scientific facts. It's not something that's voodoo magic. It's all based on science. And the fact that you mentioned, we knew thousands of years ago that it was a solar system, that just goes to show that how advanced our ancestors were in order to figure out all of these things.
Exactly, because most of the world at this point was geocentric. The Earth was in the middle.
Yeah.
We were heliocentric, like thousands of years
Yeah.
before, right? Even if you look at the
Yeah.
forget about the eight planets, which again we got it right. Even the
Yeah.
concept where the sun is in the middle and we go around the sun. Even the way we worship the Navagraha also has its own path, right? You don't worship
Yeah.
you don't do a clockwise circle. You don't count a clockwise circle, like how the planets orbit around the planet around the sun.
Yeah, exactly. We just figured that out a long time ago. And even if you look at Bhagavatam, you see so many evidences of time spans being discovered in a time period where these units of time did not even exist. So you can just imagine the level of thinking that we as a civilization had, and you start to wonder, was this all originated from a human being itself, or was it given to us by an external force? So there's
So
always that argument.
yeah, and here's an interesting part, right? If we were right on these many things, we could be right
Hmm.
on many other things as well. But the only problem is like, remember I mentioned about this YouTuber and this channel called Project Shivoham, where he talks about
Yeah.
how most of these really good findings have been lost behind the language Sanskrit, and since we cannot understand Sanskrit, not decipher it, we've lost all of it.
Hmm.
He talks about how certain things were already found by Aryabhatta, which were later, refound by a different person, but then that person
Hmm.
gets the credit. Now that he said they're not identical, he didn't copy or plagiarize others' work, but he did hundreds of years before he was already able to discover it. But someone did it later on, but they still got the credit for that work because we couldn't, get our information right because of our language problems, right? And in the same way, so many things we remember at this point only because of traditions and the way we've been doing things, those ritualistic practices. But we're still missing a huge portion of knowledge which are in the Sanskrit or in the books where we've lost all of those at this point. And which is why
Yeah.
he was stressing on the fact how important it is for us to know our past, because whatever we don't know today, there's a possibility that it could have been already found out. We just don't know it because we don't know how to read it. We can't decipher it yet.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So much of knowledge has been lost. First of all, we lost so many knowledge, so much amount of knowledge because of the invasions that we had, the Mughal invasion and then the British. So many of them destroyed all of our scriptures, and then later we just ended up losing it because thought that English is a cool language, and we stopped learning Sanskrit altogether, and then we lost so much more towards that as well.
And now, in the name of secularism, we're also losing a lot more at this point. Like, if I'm not mistaken, I think yesterday there were a couple of Hindus who were killed in a police station. Was it yesterday or today in Bangladesh?
I think, yeah, not sure. I think I saw the news article today itself, but yeah, not sure about when it was.
Yeah, so that's another problem. We are too cool for religion at this point, though, and that's another
Yeah,
problem as well because we're still losing things. We're just giving away things because again we find religion too old school, and that's another way of losing it as well. Like we've lost it to books, we lost it to invasions, we lost it to British, we lost it to several other people. Now we're losing it to ourselves because we apparently don't find it cool enough.
exactly. So many things lost due to external factors, and we did not even fight for it.
Sad. Now, yeah, there are you mentioned about the details, right? And all of those scenarios, we've gone through them in detail. We've highlighted all of them. Again, we're not saying this is we've covered everything. We've touched upon these topics, and there are more to it,
Hmm.
right? And if I'm
Hmm.
not mistaken, there could be multiple books which are talking specifically on, or at least multiple chapters talking specifically of one particular thing. So we're just taking certain topics and we're just talking about
Hmm.
certain areas. However, we could yeah, we could still have more things to cover, and yeah, maybe that's the whole idea, I guess, in terms of completing or in terms of following something up, or in terms of investigating. We still have to do our own research. We still
Hmm.
have to find our own information, and we this particular channel again is dedicated in terms of sharing whatever we know. We are just sharing out to people, but as much as we are different from each other, we're still identical. We still follow all Vedic religions. We're talking about Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism. All of them have the same roots, and all of them would have to have those traditions, whatever they have, which needs to be followed.
Yeah, exactly. So many things that we can still learn from our religion, but we just choose not to. It's a, it's just a matter of fact. I mean, yeah.
So now the final one, preserving the Hindu traditions altogether. Most of these traditions are seen in such a way that it's just stupidity or superstitious belief or whatnot. But irrespective of what your belief systems are, you just have to still understand that there is no other religion out there or no other traditions or no other regions, country, anything which has something similar to this or this rich in terms of culture, right? So it's not about protecting your religion; it's about protecting your tradition, your culture, your values, because there is only one culture or one India which has this kind of massive cultural diversity, language diversity, and so many things, right? And it has to be preserved. And by doing our uh, traditions or rituals, by following them, it could help to retain more. For example, we have Ganesh Chaturthi tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
As much as people might not believe, but following these traditions, following the idea of what is all about, and those rituals which has been practiced from thousands of years before, by
Mhm.
us doing it today, we will continue to practice it for another thousand more years later on.
Yeah, I mean that's the hope, at least at least the next few thousands of years, if they practice it, it's gonna be huge win. But we all know that Kali Yuga is still going on, and that's more less than likely to occur.
So you got this. Oh, but end of Kali Yuga and end of our session as well. I guess I think we covered what we wanted to, right?
Yeah.
And we might have to have this discussion somewhere in the future, maybe something different that we've thought of. So, yeah, anything else you want to add before we close it?
Yeah, just enjoy your festival, enjoy whatever you do. Enjoy Ganesh Chaturthi. It's a beautiful festival. I hope that next year I can just go to Mumbai or Maharashtra region and experience Ganesh Chaturthi over there, because it's like extremely special over there.
Nice, nice. So yeah, wishing everyone a happy Ganesh Chaturthi. You as well, and to your family. And yep, I think that's the end of our session today. Right. Thanks for joining,
Oh,
and hope to see you again next week.
so definitely.
All right.